Thank you. I simply want to make two aspects. One is to echo what Gail has said, which is to thank the Institute, to thank President Ivan Ivanov in particular, not simply for the kindness and sympathy shown for Alec and his family at the time of his tragic passing, and it's coming up for a year next month, but also dignity and respect that was shown in repatriating him to Scotland. It was deeply touching. It will never be forgotten. And the fact that your remarks earlier in the Robert Burns committee room were unscripted, I think, is a great testimony and something that we're extremely touched by. But it is perhaps appropriate that we should have been meeting just before we came here in the Robert Burns room. That was Scotland's national poet. Alec was a big Burns man. But it's also symptomatic of what it is that you've been meeting about, which is the interaction between culture and diplomacy. Alec was much more knowledgeable about Burns than I ever was, but I've been taking some time out to do some research about Burns statues. There are, in fact, 41 Burns statues around the world. Most are in North America or Australia and New Zealand, although there's one in Tallinn in Estonia. There's also one in Newcastle as well as London down in England. There's one in Belfast as well as Bertie and I were talking about the Agnes Gall National Park that exists in the Republic of Ireland where his sister emigrated to. But the important fact of the importance of culture in diplomacy that Mark Drakeford was very eloquent stating, I think is shown about Robert Burns. Because why are there statues to Robert Burns around the world? Well, some people will say, well, it was just rich people indulging themselves. Well, that was true. Andrew Carnegie contributed to a few, but many were put together by working men and women putting in a shilling or a dollar or even 50 cents or whatever. Some will say, well, they were all in the big cities like New York or Toronto, and of course that's where the emigrant Scots were. But there are communities even today with only 3,000 people in South Island, New Zealand, that have a statue to Robert Burns. They did it because we didn't have a Scottish Parliament. We were part of the British Empire, and when people emigrated and they wanted to say, who are we? What sort of people are? Who are we in this new land? What do we represent? What should you think about us? Well, you didn't put up a flag, you didn't have an embassy. What you did was you put up a statue to Robert Burns, because in erecting a statue to Robert Burns, you were, what you thought, putting forward who you thought you were. A belief in education, a belief in egalitarianism, a belief in hard work and thrift. These are universal values, but the Scottish communities thought that they were also their values, and that was why statues to Robert Burns went up. It was long before we thought about the soft sell in international diplomacy. It was cultural diplomacy, and I can only end by quoting our national bard Robert Burns, that it's coming yet for all that man to man the world o'er shall brothers be for all that.